Hello, this is Pigeon, Chief Operating Officer at Hobbs Group Advisors. Today I'm talking about Social Security. This is our third webinar this year. This is really the second Social Security webinar that we've done. I did one last year, which was a little bit more like a Social Security 101. This might be a Social Security 102 or 201, so a little bit more in depth. If you'd like to watch the previous episode on Social Security, you're welcome to watch that. We have it housed on our website, hobbsgroupadvisors.com. But today's is about, what you need to know about Social Security. And there's a lot that's changing. There's a lot that you need to know. Demographics in this country are really putting strain on the system, both Social Security and Medicare. We've got a ton of people turning 62 every year. Which is just more and more people turning on their Social Security spigot, so to speak. So, the things that most of our clients want to know about Social Security are, will it be there? How much can you expect to receive? When should I apply? And how can I maximize my benefits? And then will Social Security be enough to live on? And I think, many of you know the answers to these things. We're going to go through them. The when and the how is really different. And I say this about everything with financial planning, it's different for each person. It's different for each couple, right? Everybody's situation is unique. Therefore, there is no one size fit all strategy for Social Security. Someone else tells you about what they did for Social Security, that has absolutely no bearing on what you should do, because your situation is definitely not the same as theirs. Maybe it's similar, but probably not. I always say that the most dangerous thing is for most of our clients, advice from their peers, because it's just not specific to their situation. So anyway, will Social Security be there? The answer to that is yes. That being said, there's been some updated information on this. This trust fund is dwindling. There's a huge increase to Social Security payments because of inflation. So the balance has gone down a little bit. But that being said, there's still plenty of money in the Social Security Trust Fund. The period of time where payments will have to start going down is 2034, and that's reducing benefits to 78%. I think that date has moved down a little bit. It might be closer to 2033 now, in light of some of these changes. So it's something to watch. So the answer is what's probably going to happen as it relates to Social Security reform. So usually the first thing that happens is taxation, right? So earners are going to end up having more of their wages subject to Social Security tax. Right now, the first $147,000 of wages are subject to Social Security tax. That number will probably go up to help cover this cost. The normal retirement age, for those that aren't very close to the normal retirement age now, will probably go up. It's 66 for those born between 43 and 54. It's really 67 for those born 1960 or later. Certainly something to think about is that, for those born after a certain date, that number might be moving up to 68 or 69. We are living longer, therefore the need for Social Security, and people are working longer. Therefore, retirement ages should move higher, and they probably will for the purpose of Social Security. And then, there could be lower benefits, and that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting pill to swallow if you think about the fact that many of those people that are going to be paying the higher taxes on Social Security may get lower benefits, but that's certainly something that's possible. And then the reduction of cost of living adjustments. So there was a huge cost of living adjustment in 2022 because of inflation. One of the things, for example, the South Carolina retirement system has done to try to basically make that pension system more solvent is to put a cap on the cost of living increases. And that, that's a possibility. That's not a great thing, because as you can imagine, as things get more expensive, you'd like your income to become to grow with it. But these are possibilities. Next question, how much can I expect to receive? The answer depends on how much you've earned over your career and when you apply for benefits, right? So Social Security benefits are calculated at 62. All of your year's earnings are tallied up and indexed for inflation. You typically, and if you look at your Social Security statement, it will have a history of your Social Security earnings. The highest 35 years are averaged, which is the AIME. That is divided by 3, what we call bin points, determine your primary insurance amount, which is your PIA. All these acronyms are so much fun. And then your benefit is increased each year by cost of living adjustment, which is what's called a COLA, cost of living adjustment. And that's how you come up with your benefit. So an example of a benefit formula for someone that was born in 1960, that turned 62 in 2022, that they receive the maximum earnings for Social Security, meaning that their earnings were far above and beyond the maximum. Therefore, they paid the maximum amount of tax into the Social Security system, and they could receive the maximum benefit. Their AIME was $11,430. The way you calculate their primary insurance amount is based on these 3 different bin points to get a total of $3,357.66. That's the amount they will receive at their full retirement age. So that's not 62. For them, it's probably 67. So at 67, they will receive $3,357.60 plus any cost of living adjustments that happen along the way. So here's your full retirement age based on the year you were born. That example before, they were born in 1960. Anybody born 1960 and beyond, currently their full retirement age is age 67. Full retirement age means the date in which you can receive full Social Security benefits. You take it before, you get a reduction. You take it after, and you get some deferred credits. We're going to talk about that a little bit. In fact, here we are. At 62, you take a haircut on your benefit. You get 75% of your full retirement, your FRA benefit. If you're born before 1966, if your full retirement age is 67, then you get 70%, right? So for those of us born 1960 and after, it's even more of a reduction. And you see for every year that you wait from 62 to your full retirement age, it goes up. That same logic happens afterwards. You get an 8% bump to your income for every year that you wait up until age 70. You can't wait past age 70. So for someone that waits to age 70, you get if your full retirement age was 66, you get more. Full retirement age is 70, you have, really 3 years of deferrals of those 8% increases. You see your percentage increase, but for those that wait, you get a benefit. So anyone can go on the socialsecurity.gov /my account, or you can go to socialsecurity.gov and click on the retirement estimator. There's calculators, there's all sorts of tools that you can use on the Social Security website. The annual statement is available for you to look at your earnings history. So third question, when should I apply? It depends very much on your health status, your life expectancy, your need for income, whether or not you plan to work, and your survivor needs. I always tell people, if you're working and you are not in need of income, then you probably shouldn't take your Social Security. That's my personal opinion. You also end up paying tax on it. So I hate to see people generate tax for income that they don't need, especially if you could increase your benefit by waiting. But your health status matters, your life expectancy matters. Obviously, if you need income, that's different. And then while you're working, once again, you're penalized in some cases by drawing early. So that does not make sense. Drawing early while you're working is an absolute hard no. Break-even analysis, there's lots of different break-even analysis calculators out there. In most cases, for those that wait to age 70, a rule of thumb is age 78 is your break-even. So if you think you're going to live past age 78, there's some real benefit to waiting. And then 62. If you're not going to live, if you don't think you're going to make it to 77, then taking early sometimes can make some sense, right? Life expectancy, health status, 2 big things to take in consideration. This, when you take into account, If you invest dollars, if your benefits are invested, a lot of people say, I want to take my Social Security and invest the difference. Your break even there is 75, 79. Of course, taxes come into play here as well. And you do get these guaranteed cost of living benefits within Social Security. Your returns, if you invest your money yourself, are not guaranteed. So once again, you're, from a spending analysis, the benefit of drawing early is you do get access to those dollars sooner. So you see a break even here in that situation to be more like 77 from an ability to spend that money sooner. But even still, a lot of reasons with especially our clients, their life expectancies, longevity just being a trend. Most of our clients are living past age 77 to 79. But it's different for each person. And then couples play a role too, because you're really looking at two different life expectancies. So how do you maximize your benefits? Well, improving your earnings record certainly, gives you a higher benefit. Delaying the benefits, as I said, the start of benefits will give you that 8% increase. Taking advantage of the spousal protections and survivor benefits that are in the system. Minimizing your taxes on benefits, that's easier said than done. And then coordinating your Social Security with an overall retirement income plan. You shouldn't have a discussion on Social Security without having a discussion about all the other things that are part of your retirement plan. It really isn't a standalone discussion because taxes and everything else, they all matter and they all should coordinate with each other. So strategy number one for maximizing your benefits, some of these are kind of simple: working longer, earning more, right? Everybody would like to do that, certainly like to earn more, but if you choose to work longer, that always helps in retirement because it increases your benefit, and it's just another year that you're not using your retirement assets. So here's Rebecca, for example. She has an earnings history from 83 to 88. She stopped working from 89 to 2008. Her maximum earning years were from 2009 to 2020. So after she went back in the workforce, what would her benefit be if 67? If she stops working now, or she keeps working until age 67, and she's 60 years old right now. So you see her benefit will be $2,000 if she stops working at 60 and draws her benefit at 67. If she keeps working until 67, those extra 7 years of earnings will increase her benefit by $551 per month. So cumulative benefits at age 85 to include cost of living increases could mean $700,000 of extra income over that time period. So certainly something to think about. Strategy number two, waiting, right? Delaying the start of your benefits, drawing at 70. Sometimes there's a situation, if you are a spouse, you can draw on your spouse's record. For a divorced spouse, they have access to draw on their divorced spouse's record for a portion of it. And then for a survivor, there are benefits that are available in some cases that will not impact your benefits as an earner. And there used to be more ways, but there are a few ways to draw on those in those situations. So here's an example of Michael. So he's a high earner, age 58. What will his benefit be if he starts at 62 versus 70? You see the impact here. Claiming at 62 is $2,100 because you take a reduction in your benefits. Claiming at 70, $3,720. That's roughly $1 million difference. And if he's married, the other thing is he protects his spouse by waiting, because she would be eligible for a larger benefit if he were to predecease her. So that's where you have other variables in play when you have two spouses versus just one. Delaying benefits, I think that we've talked about this. A lot of benefits to waiting. There just are. More income later. I always tell people you can't outlive your Social Security income. You can't outlive your other assets. So having the Social Security as your backup pension, because most people don't have pensions, in the private world anymore. Obviously, if you work for federal government, you work for municipalities, maybe you have access to those, but many of our clients do not. Working for a private employer, So benefits to waiting is to have that assurance that you have higher income in the future. Strategy number 3 would be, considering the strategies for spouses, married couples, taking advantage of spousal benefits as they are allowed, divorced spouses and widowers, how you coordinate those benefits. We'll talk about that a little bit. So, spousal benefit. So a spouse is entitled to 50% of the primary worker's benefit. So that means if you have a high earning spouse and a non-working spouse, the high earning spouse primary insurance amount is $2,000. The spouse would be entitled to $1,000. That does not impact the earners. In other words, that's on top of it, right? So, if in this example, Jane applies at 62, she'll get $650 because she gets a reduction. If both spouses work, then you can, one spouse may be able to claim spousal benefit, but that only really is applicable for people that are grandfathered, and most of our clients are born after that date. So this is typically no longer allowed. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And then, when you have a lower earning spouse whose primary insurance amount is more than that 50% that Social Security gives you, and if both spouses delay to 70, or if one spouse takes advantage of spousal benefits as allowed, you can try to maximize benefits over an average or longer life expectancies. And then you've got an example of where one earning spouse is less than 50%, then you may want that lower earning spouse to go ahead and claim early and the higher earning spouse to claim at 70, right? So if one takes early, you generate some income now, and then the higher earning spouse waits to 70, you get income sooner, and you get, you're maximizing the higher earner's benefit. And that means if the higher earning spouse does predecease the spouse that drew early, the surviving spouse gets to take the higher benefit. They get to replace their smaller benefit with the higher benefit, so it protects them. So that's usually if we're talking to clients and both don't want to wait, the idea is to get one to draw early and one wait, which is somewhat of a compromise. So spousal plan analysis, this would be an example for Bob and Betty Smith. So this is some software that we use. We can kind of plug these things in and see the assumptions and the scenarios. So the scenario of both of them claiming early would be scenario 1. Both of them claiming at full retirement age is scenario 2. Betty claims early, Bob claims later, scenario 3, and then maximum lifetime nominal benefit. Keep in mind, the maximum lifetime nominal benefit is assuming we have to assume some sort of life expectancy. And the idea is that nominal benefit over lifetime might be higher, but that still doesn't mean that you have use of the dollars sooner. So in the example of this example, both claiming early is the worst. It's always the worst example. Both claiming at full retirement is typically a slightly better example than scenario 2. And then Betty claiming early and Bob claiming later is that compromise we talked about. And your total lifetime benefits are higher than option 2, but you also get access to some of these funds. Betty gets to retire early. There's some value in that, right? Bob's going to work longer and wait to draw his Social Security. You have some income coming in, and it's not that much different than if both of them wait to age 70, right? There's more than just the sheer numbers over the entire time period than is part of this decision. Just kind of shows you the graph of how these benefits work, your break evens, things like that. Divorced spouses, interesting points on this. If a marriage has lasted 10 years or more, and the person receiving the divorced spouse benefit is currently unmarried, and the ex-spouse is at least 62 years old, and the divorce was more than 2 years ago. So all those things, then the divorced spouse can actually draw off of their former spouse's record, and that doesn't impact theirs. So you can have unlimited ex-spouses, I guess, in theory, and it doesn't impact the person's record. The benefits paid to one ex-spouse does not benefit the worker or any other spouses, ex-spouses, current spouse, ex-spouse. And upon remarriage of the spouse collecting benefits, the divorced spouse benefits stop. So if you remarry, this does not apply. Survivor benefits are a little different. So survivor benefits, the widow or widower can claim benefits depending on their age. And so the benefit, depending on when it's claimed, it can be up to 82.5% of the PIA. If they claimed early, then there is a permanent reduction to the survivor. It's another reason to not draw benefit early. If the person who's deceased waited until at least their full retirement age or later, then the remaining spouse will get 100% of their and include the delayed credit. So that's why waiting until 70 is really important, because it does protect the surviving spouse. And then it's really dependent on when the widow or widower claims the benefit, right? At age 60, a widow or widower can claim benefit. It is a reduction. At their full retirement age, they'll be able to receive 100% of the benefits. So if the spouse dies while both husband and wife are receiving benefits, then the spouse can switch to the higher benefit, right? So this is kind of what we talked about. Joe's benefits $2,000, Julie's is $1,200. Joe passes away, Julie gets to take the $2,000 survivor benefit. So this is an example of early claiming. You know, Joe's got a $2,000 PIA, but he draws at 62, which means he gets a reduction. He gets 75% of his money, so $1,500. Julie's survivor benefit will depend on when she claims it, right? If she takes it at 60, at her full retirement age or later, then she'll get $1,650. If she takes it at 60, then she's going to get $1,430. She'll get less. So those two things are a variable. If Joe would have waited till his full retirement age, Judy would have been protected more there. So, and that's even more important when you have one higher earning spouse. It's the main reason we tell the higher earning spouse in most cases to wait on their benefits. Here's an example of the delayed credits. Joe's 70, Julie's 60, right? Joe's getting the deferred benefit credits now. So his benefit at 70 is $2,640. He passes away. Now Julie can take 100% of that at her full retirement age when she turns, in this case, probably 67. Or if she decides to draw at 60, she gets $1,887. That's a whole lot better than the number, the $1,450 that was in the previous scenario. So for surviving spouses, have to be married at least 9 months. You have to be at least 60 as a survivor to start to receive some form of benefit. If you're disabled, you can receive it at 50. And the survivor benefit is not available to a widow or widower if they remarried before the age of 60. And so the divorced spouse's survivor benefit is available if the marriage lasted at least 10 years. So what that means is if you're a divorced spouse and your ex-husband passes away, you could theoretically draw on their record and not impact your own. So that's certainly something that's, I guess, a benefit. So strategy number 4 is to, and this is what we kind of we talk about the gap years with our clients, right? Drawing down IRAs to reduce your RMDs once you return 72, convert your IRAs to Roth. So for example, a lot of times we talk to clients about waiting to draw their benefits, but yet you stop working, you use your assets along the way. Roth conversions make a lot of sense because you're in a lower tax bracket using tax advantage investments. These are all strategies that we employ here that take into account your total wealth picture. You have to take into account your retirement accounts. You have to take into account your investment portfolio and your earnings from work. So will Social Security be enough to live on? We know the answer is no, right? Our goal is to keep our clients out of poverty in retirement. You have questions, we can help, right? When, how, keeping working, all of those things. If you already applied, the rules state you have a year to change your mind after you apply for Social Security. After that year, you can't undo it. Spousal benefits, best long-term strategy for your situation. we can answer these questions for you. We do it every day. We see it quite often, and we're happy to help. Here's our information here. If you want to watch the Social Security 101 webinar, we have that in our library. And we certainly appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today. My name is Pete Pigeon. Once again, please reach out with questions, and we'll see you next month during our next webinar.